I still go to the footy every weekend thinking I haven't called my best game of footy ever.
I love, when I was a
I
kid.
noticed you're not short of a word, Ruth.
No, exactly right. You too, BT. It was the best day of my life, genuinely.
It's funny you say that because we have a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
I played my first game at that ground as well.
BT, it's nice to sit down with you. I feel like we don't actually really know each other that well, even though we sort of work in the same circles and have probably a lot in common, a lot more than
I've been
we
watching
thought.
from afar.
Yeah, I've been watching you from afar, actually. Actually, when I first, this is jumping the gun a little, but when I first thought I wanted to get into media, I was copying you. There was an under-18 state champs, and I thought, I'm just going to try something here. I was doing something for the AFLW where they were following me around, and I did a roaming Rubes. And it was probably the first time that they went, you're pretty good at that. So it was when you sort of just first started the roaming BT stuff. But yeah, nice to be able to sit down with you.
Well, it is. And I didn't realise that you were from WA, the same as me.
Yeah.
And came at a very similar age. I was sort of 16 going on 17. You were 18.
Yeah, 18 years old.
Yeah.
You're down south though. You're Pinjarra boy, Mandurah.
I was from Mandurah.
Yeah.
People get mixed up with Pinjarra a lot because I was from Mandurah, but I went to Pinjarra every day to high school because Mandurah didn't have a high school.
Yeah,
believe it or not. It was always the bigger town, but it actually didn't have a high school. So we had to travel on the bus to high school. I always sat in the back row. You're able to sit in the back row and kiss the girls and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, you would have been kissing a lot of girls, wouldn't you, BT?
Without anyone
Did you have the
seeing.
mustache back then as well? Mustache from a young age?
No, I didn't have that, but it was they were great times. The other thing that interested me about you was your basketball background, both 16s and 18s age group.
Yeah.
How far did you go in that?
Yeah, so I was, played like nationals basketball for WA and captained the side a couple times and was looking at going to college in America. That sort of crucial, year 12, you're going through it and you're figuring out what's next, and was talking to a few colleges and fractured my back twice in the lead up to my final under-18s carnival. First before the carnival, played but was like, it was cooked. My back was cooked. I was only able to, play half a game until I was, laying down on the side of the court because I just couldn't really move that well. So I was relying on some good painkillers to get through. And then 6 months later, fractured my back again. So that was sort of a heartbreaking moment for me where everything I'd put, I was terrible at school. I didn't try because I went, I'm going to be a basketballer, I'm going to be a sports person. So when that came crumbling down and the colleges sort of went, look, we can't take a 4-year scholarship risk on an international player that can't stay out on the court. That was a bit of a life-altering moment for me.
It's interesting you say that you knew you were going to be either a basketballer or a footballer. The opportunities probably in my time, we're speaking about the early 80s here, late 70s, early 80s. It was just a dream to be a professional. It was almost unreachable.
Well, you were a plumber.
I was a plumber.
Yeah. So when did you pick that up? You were drafted at 16. So was it when you moved to Melbourne?
Yeah. So that was part of the package that they gave me. They gave me a job as well.
Yeah.
And it was working as a plumber in Paran. So
did you want to be a plumber, or they just said, here, you're going to be a plumber on the side?
You know what? They said to me, Brian, whatever you want to do, we will look after it for you.
Yeah.
So if you want to go to uni, we'll get you in. I hadn't finished school. There's no way I could go to uni. I'd never read a book. And it was I don't know why I didn't pick to be an electrician. It's less dirty job. But for some reason I chose plumbing, and that's what they honoured, and away I went. I arrived from Western Australia as a 16-year-old kid on a Friday. I was at work at 7 o'clock on Monday. Yeah. It was bizarre.
And I guess what was the support then? Because it's that funny thing of back then people aren't getting paid what they get paid now. No. So what did that look like? You obviously were in a position where you had to work. How was that balance? Because that's probably where our stories are pretty similar as well, where you had to work early days as well to be able to pay to live in Melbourne.
Yeah, well, they also billeted me out with an elderly lady in South Yarra and Hawkesbury, which was great. She had a couple of other athletes there as well. So I was in a room in this beautiful house in South Yarra, so it was a great spot near the station, all of that sort of thing, very close to work, not too far from where Richmond was at the time. So they looked after accommodation, they looked after my job, and the football club became my sort of social home, if you like. Even because I played the first year in the under-19s, And even while that was happening, I'd go down to senior training nights because I had no one else. There was nothing else. What was I going to do on all of those? I was terribly homesick, like you were, I believe.
Terrible.
I just so badly wanted to go home. Did you want to go home?
100%. I think like the first, particularly because the first 4 years of my career, I didn't really do much, to be honest. I was in and out of the side. I probably thought I was working hard but didn't really know how to. And we were also only playing 7-8 games a season. So it was a really small chunk of our year, right? Plus trying to get used to the Melbourne winter. I remember winter would hit and I was working full-time at a cafe to try and pay rent living in Glen Iris because, it wasn't really an option that was thrown up to live with a host family. There was never that option. And like that first year, I was paid $8,500 to move across from WA because it was my option to opt for the Victorian draft rather than the Western Australian. I didn't get relocation allowance, so was literally $8,500 that I was making for that year. So you obviously had to work.
That was a big risk for you then.
Yeah, I think mum and dad, Collingwood, before the draft, Collingwood were the first club I spoke to because one of my coaches from East Fremantle was coming across as the first midfield coach for the women's team and said, I want you to come across with me. And then when Freo got a sniff that was happening, they sort of said, just stay here, nominate here, and we're going to pick you up. But I spoke to mum and dad and they just said, why wouldn't you go and play for the biggest club in Australia?
In the heart of football.
Exactly right. And if it doesn't work out, you move home and you try again. And I think that's probably my mentality with a lot of things is say yes. If you hate it, you figure it out pretty quickly. It might work out and it might lead you to something. I mean, safe to say it's worked out, but it was bloody hard. And that homesickness, whether it was I got injured, I was like, just get me home, or I'd go home and I would cry the whole plane ride back just being like, I don't want to leave. I still get emotional leaving, Mum. Yeah. I still get so upset. But, you felt that homesickness as well.
Oh, absolutely I did in a really bad way. I had a girlfriend in Western Australia.
Yeah, the old long distance. Yeah, we've all been there.
My family, my friends, probably the friends was a really hard thing as well. I was like you. I had an interest in football but didn't realise I was really good at it until I was about that sort of 15, 16 years of age. Because I was into basketball. I represented WA when they only had a metro team. There was no country team. And also part of the squad for the 18s as well going forward. And I was a motocross rider as well. So I had those things on my mind rather than footy.
Yeah.
And I just got pulled into the last week of the training session for the under-18 championship. I'd knocked it back up until then because I didn't really understand what it was and I had no inclination of where it could lead to. I had no idea that if you go on this under-18s national championship and you go to Adelaide and you play well, someone might see. I had no idea of that anyone would even be there watching other than families. And so eventually I relented and I went to training, got picked and went and played on a very experienced player by the name of Mark Wiedemann, who was already playing men's football in the Sandful.
Right.
And I'm a kid playing on him, did okay, and I was seen from there. So, but the shift over was enormously hard. Even though I was with the host family, it was just, I can remember many nights in tears, massive phone bills. I had massive phone bills at that time, ringing people at home all the time. It was a big challenge getting over. But anyway, I'm glad I did it. This is the epicentre of football, regardless, and the epicentre of opportunity, which you and I are both.
And you fell in love with the Victorian and then you stayed here for good. You're never a chance of going back to WA, you reckon? You're pretty settled?
I reckon in the first couple of years I definitely was. But right now, married a Victorian, as you say, how many boys have I got? 4, I think. 4 boys. I think I had to actually think about that. I've got 4. I'm pretty sure I've got 4.
A grandkid now?
And 2 grandchildren. Children. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And, really looking forward to it. So the media's been something that I never thought would happen as a plumber. Here I am unblocking dunnies and digging holes.
Yeah.
Whoever thought? I got into the media through really opportunities football by not refusing interviews. I don't know how you got your way in, but for me, Lee Matthews would always say to us, look, don't talk to the media. If you have to talk to the media, certainly don't tell them the truth.
Yeah.
And that was the attitude then. And I adopted the opposite attitude. Yeah. I needed to prove to people that I could talk and do this. How did you find your way in?
Oh, pretty much the same. I think, yeah, like I said, saying yes to everything. Like I never, whether it was the club saying, can you do this? We're going to give you a mic and just walk around and talk to the girls, and behind the scenes we'll see what we can get. And they just let me go rogue. And I reckon probably a third of it they couldn't use because it would go too rogue. But the 2/3 that they could use, it would get received really well. And then I'd like anything, you just get a bit of confidence. And for me, I'm obviously not an introvert. Like I've always I don't know about you, I've always been a bit of a show off. Like I love, when I was a kid. I noticed
you're not short of a word, Ruth.
No, exactly right. You too, BT. But I think for me, like I love making people laugh. I love talking to people. Like I just probably couldn't think, for me, work-wise, I always thought I was going to be a teacher where, you're working with children and I love kids and all of this kind of thing, have that effect. But then as soon as I started, exploring that side, I went, oh, no, I think this is for me. Like I get a real joy and challenge from it as well.
So where do you think it might – I mean, you've been involved in the AFLW since its inception, game one. Actually, you actually played in game one. So where ultimately do you see the media going? What is the ideal position? How far do you want to go?
I mean, I just love game days. I love seeing, the best of the best and the way that they go about it, and also trying to keep up with the people around me who are very, very good at their jobs. Like this is sort of my first full year of working in the men's space. I've done special comments in the women's space, which are obviously a lot shorter of a game, not the same resources for the production, where then you walk into the men's and the resources that go into it to make game day happen is incredible. And you're working with all these incredible former players who you need to try and keep up with and hold your own, So I think probably just like continuing to develop in that. I love standing next to people and being challenged and things being thrown at me. And having to think on my feet on live television. I think that's really cool. So,
and I reckon for me, the thinking on live TV and always being ready to have something to say, and not just sort of shit words that mean nothing and anyone could say them. Words of real meaning and substance is the key to have on your mind. There are some people that are better than others. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what I love about it, and just having to – you don't want to go in pre-plan because that's when I think you stumble over your words and all of that kind of thing, and I've definitely done that before, and you almost get a little bit – you get caught up on it and you think about it for the next 20 minutes and sort of have the mind off the job. So I like there's definitely been moments where I feel I've come in underdone and you go, oh, God, I'm out of my depth here, and a bit of imposter syndrome. But when you've done the work and you come in and you go, righto, I'm next to these. Yeah, exactly right. And then there's that confidence that you feel in doing that. So I really love that. But how did you always feel like it came naturally to you? Obviously you said you were happy to do interviews, but when it came to you speaking footy and doing the interviewing?
I remember very early, maybe in my first year or two as a young kid playing footy at Richmond, that I went to a function with, it must have been a group of people at Richmond, and it was at Leondra in Hawthorn, and, there were footballers speaking and other people speaking, and there was the host speaking, and I went, wow, look at those people. They can speak in public. And I'm looking at them in amazement saying, Jesus, I could never do that.
Yeah.
And as I kept going to these functions over the time, I really studied the hosts in particular, and I went, they're really boring. They've got the easiest job of the day. The hardest job is being the guest, where you've got to entertain, and you've got to get laughs. And so what I started doing were functions, and I do a lot of functions, from a boardroom function to a pie night for someone to a charity event, literally hundreds and hundreds over the many, many years. And I found that it was that gave me the confidence in my current job now. It was that gave me the words at the right time for the right job. And I reckon my whole media training came out of live functions. Right. If I were to say to anybody now, how do I get better in the media? Go and do live functions, because as you say, when you're live, the pressure's on.
Well, I can say I've sat in a few of the functions that you've emceed, and they're definitely not boring. I'll give you that. There are a few president functions at Pies games that you do very well. But aside from the media stuff, you're a very good player. First up, obviously drafted to Richmond. We'll leave that. Obviously, that's still a great player at Richmond. But you enter the Pies. For you, how old were you when you went to the Pies?
I was about 23, 24.
What was that like for you? Obviously a very different club then to what it is now, but it's the same sort of, we share a history and there's still that momentum of you walking into the Collingwood Football Club.
Collingwood, when I went there in 1985, hadn't had a lot of ultimate success. They'd played in many grand finals and lost them. A friend of mine, Renee Kink, had played in 6 grand finals and lost them all. Yeah. Another friend of mine, Ricky Barham, played in 5 losing grand finals at Collingwood. So that was the prehistory of me coming to Collingwood and what was happening as Collingwood as a team. I must admit, when I arrived, it was like Hollywood. It was like, there was this thing called at Victoria Park, the 3rd floor, the social club, and it was like everyone wanted to be up there rather than on the field because it was a better time. And so it was a little bit like Hollywood. And I noticed that in my first year, Lee Matthews was the assistant coach to Bob Rose. And then in the second year, early in the year, he took over. And from the moment he took over, a level of discipline all of a sudden walked into the place that had never been, I don't think it had ever been equalled in that place before. And the place completely straightened up. So it was an amazing period of time to be there, and that transformation from all of those losses to all of a sudden this really controlled environment that Lee Matthews had set up, and ultimately that's what brought success. I loved going to Collingwood, playing with Richmond and Collingwood, 2 biggest clubs. They were massive. Richmond had just come off a period of great success where they'd won 4 premierships. Collingwood was this incredible club that had all this, bits and pieces to go with it. It was absolutely amazing. For you, stepping into Collingwood was like stepping into fairyland?
Yeah, pretty much. I think particularly because it was such a quick turnaround.
Fairyland's probably
fairyland. It was such a quick turnaround. So I remember being, early 18 years old. I reckon I was 17, and we had heard word that there's going to be a women's AFL competition that comes in 2023. That was the original thing. Right. 2023 is going to be the first year. So I'm thinking, right, I'm going to be mid-20s, that's going to be great and all of this. And then 6 months later, the AFL went, no, all right, there's going to be a draft in a couple months' time.
So was that 2017?
2016 was the draft, end of 2016, and then 2017 the first competition. And I was freshly 18. I went, oh boy,
so
I'm a chance.
So how long had you been in Melbourne when they played that first game, Carlton Collingwood at what's it called, Icon Park?
Yeah.
How long had you been in Melbourne at that stage?
I'd moved over in October 2016 and the game was February 3rd, 2017. Right. So a few months. I'd gone home for 2 weeks over Christmas. Didn't think I was a chance of playing. Oh God, if you saw photos of me back then, you'd,
really?
I was a
surfy chick sort of look.
Oh, this long hair down to my ass, which I go, get a haircut. How do you think that looked good? Never brushed it in my life, and just a kid, just a chubby face, no muscle tone. I was a point guard in basketball who just relied on my speed and my decision making. I hadn't really been in a gym because that's not what, I don't know, at that stage basketball hadn't turned into that just yet, particularly junior basketball. So I was just this scrawny kid that I was actually an undersized ruck my first year for Emma King, who was the number 1 ruck in the competition. And I played about 30% game time. I was a head and a half smaller than every other girl that I was competing, but I could jump. So that's all I could try do, and then try play as an extra midfielder when it hit the deck.
But just before you go to this first game and we get there, what made you say basketball, it's football?
The back fractures.
Oh.
Yeah. So I think that kind of made the decision for me when I went, all right, I'm not going to college. I was playing SBL, which is NBL 1 now for Willetton, and I sort of went, to be fair, my back responded a lot better coming back to football than it did basketball. And whether it was because of the hard court and changing direction and the pace of the game and how much weight you're putting through your feet compared to football where you're doing long efforts and you're getting hit but you're getting ready to get hit. And football just started to feel better. I wasn't coming off with back spasms like I was in basketball. So
sorry I interrupted you. So now 2017, we're getting towards this first game. Tell us what you're thinking. Just I remember that first game. Remember the crowds, they were locked out and it was absolutely chockers, 30,000 people there or whatever. Do you remember how many were there?
They say 25,000, but I think that's because the AFL are trying to cover themselves from a health and safety point of view.
Oh, yes. Because and they used to do that all the time in the old days.
Because they couldn't have any more.
Yeah.
But I remember looking around, there was everyone in the staircases. Like if there wasn't a seat, people were sitting on the staircases. There were genuinely people jumping the fence. And then obviously post-game you see the video of Gil who goes outside and says, guys, no more people can come in. We're so sorry, we didn't expect this. And leading into that game, we'd heard, I was lucky to be playing, by the way. I really didn't expect to get the call that I had gotten a game when, my coach.
What age?
18.
18.
18 February. Yep. And, got the call from Wayne Seekman, my coach at the time, and said, you're in. And I remember just calling my old man and crying and when I told him and just couldn't believe it.
Did they come over?
17 of my family and friends made the trip over. So they filled up half of the stand behind the benches, which those stands can't be used anymore. They're heritage listed, but they're not safe for people to sit on. But this game, it was packed. Yeah. And
I don't think my mum and dad came for the first game. No. My memory. It wasn't a big deal. Now they all do it.
Yeah, well, it's a big thing now, isn't it? The jumper presentation and all of that. But yeah, we heard going into the game it was going to be 14,000 people estimated to be there. So then when we've come out for the final warm-up before the game and it's just I couldn't even explain the feeling. It's probably you would have felt that feeling so often, running out at Vic Park to a full stadium. But it's obviously in the AFLW, it's what we want to get back to, but it's not something at Collingwood we've had since, which is that 27,000 estimating and just the roar and the crowd and how passionate they were the whole game. We lost that game pretty badly, but it was the best day of my life, genuinely.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because we have a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
I played my first game at that ground as well.
Yeah, right.
Against Carlton. And I remember another player who'd been at Richmond for a long time, Merv Kane, who was a superstar. He said, Brian, this will be the greatest day of your life.
Yeah.
And you just said it was the greatest day of your life.
Yeah.
He said, well, this will be the greatest day of your life. And I came off at the end of the game having had one kick and one handball. And I said to Merv, that wasn't the greatest day of my life.
I know, it's a bit well, now you've got kids. I hope it isn't the greatest day of your life. Your wife might get you in trouble. Yeah. But it's just incredible. It is honestly I look back and I go, it is incredible, just probably because more for what it stood for, broader than just a football game. Walking around, both teams, this is how weird it was, and what a moment it was. Both teams walked around the boundary after that game, after the siren had gone and we'd shaken hands. Yeah. Because there were people crying down on the boundary. There were. Did
you understand the gravity of the inception of this competition and that on that particular day?
It felt special, but probably not. As an 18-year-old, you probably don't understand. The gravity of what you're doing.
About going out that night.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. So it was a bit different for those early years. I'm sure it was for you, but you hear stories now, and some of my best friends were sitting in the stands and there was a bloke sitting next to them bawling his eyes out. And they said, are you all right? He's sitting there by himself and he's probably in his 40s. And they said, are you all right, mate? And he said, my sister, I just lost my sister to cancer and she would have loved to see this. Yeah. So I'm here for her. And then, walking around and people were handing their babies over to players, just to, have a photo with them. And it was just, that's when you sort of go, you hear those stories. And I have people come up to me and tell me where they were when that first game happened. And it's pretty cool to think that's one of those moments because there's not many of those moments it's where were you when you found out Michael Jackson died? It's one of those moments where it's everyone remembers where they found out or where they watched something. And that's one of those moments, which was
so a
really
decade
cool.
on now, almost a decade. How are you feeling about where the game's at? Because this is the period now where young girls have been able to have a football in their hands all of their life.
Yeah. Well, I'm shitting myself now, BT, because they're really good players that are coming through and I'm going to be out of a job at some stage. But I think we've got a long way to go. You know what I mean? We look at that first game in particular and we go, oh, how good was that? The following year, you've got 50,000 at Adelaide Oval watching the grand final. We want to get to that every year, having 50,000 at the grand final, and we're not there.
Yeah.
And, we expanded. Obviously, the level, it dropped, which is expected with expansion. But now we've got this young talent coming through. We've got girls who have had this pathway all the way through. And I'm seeing it with some of the first years now.
Uninterrupted pathway.
Uninterrupted pathway. Girls who haven't had to stop playing football at 11 years old like I did to be a basketballer because footy wasn't an option. I couldn't play with the boys anymore. You know, these girls have played the whole way through, and you can tell because they've got these skills and they're growing up. I mean, I grew up watching, you know, your Matt Pavliches, your Ben Cousins, all of that over in WA, the real like silky but bash and crash. They're growing up watching Nick Dacos and these people that do freakish things we haven't seen on a football field skill-wise and trying to emulate that. And then some of them can do it, pulling these kicks inside, you know, 90-degree kicks. I'm going, how the hell has she done that? Which is like, that's really exciting. So I think, you know, it's going to take some time, but I really do hope, and the growth that it is, you know, going at, that we're going to be able to get there. But I don't want to skim over your footy journey because you were the last player to kick 100 for Collingwood, and talk about moments. Talk me through one, that game, because I don't think it was as straightforward. I think you had a few troubles, but also the moment of just being stampeded.
Look, it's something I never ever thought that I'd be the leading goal kicker in the AFL, win a Coleman medal in that particular year, kick 100 goals. Like that, that's like when I was at home watching the winners and I'd watch someone like Peter McKenna or any of these great full forwards that were pre-me, you just go, how far, I can never get to that. And all of a sudden you're in that environment. In that particular year, I'd missed the first couple of games of the year, and I think we only played maybe 18 or 20 rounds as well. So there weren't a lot of games to do that, but it was it just sort of snuck up on me, I guess. Got to the stage where at the end of the year I was on 98 goals going into the last game of the year. Collingwood needed to win. St Kilda needed to win to make finals, so it was a really important team game. And I'm in this sort of situation, not dissimilar to where Jeremy Cameron might find himself in a couple of weeks, that you need to get this done before finals, and it can be a little bit of a distraction. So I kicked the 99th goal in the early part of the game, but it strained my groin and I was unable to move. And so, you know, came in at quarter time, Lee Matthews said, you're off. And, you know, that was pretty – and so we had a bit of a blue. And I said, look, just give me 5 minutes and I'll get this out of the way quick. And then I knew I was probably gone for 3 or 4 weeks anyway.
Yeah.
And it was true that I walked past the umpires in the middle and they did say, look, just get yourself in the right position and, you know, we'll see what happens from there. Yeah. And so I was really gifted the last 2 kicks because I missed one and got the other one and kicked 100 goals. So it was a bit of a fairy tale. It wasn't something I ever set out to achieve.
Yeah.
You know, it was more about team, and I just wanted to play in a premiership. I was at 2 clubs, both at Richmond and at Collingwood, in premiership years when they actually won. And for one reason or another, I wasn't in the team.
Yeah.
And so that really sort of irks you. But jumping into the media really quickly after that sort of made me and enabled me to forget about that and move on.
Well, I want to talk to you about that because 1990, you know, did you know going into that year that it was going to be your last year? Because it's an interesting one, right?
Not really, because I was only 27.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was thinking. You were, you know, 27, 28 when you retired.
Yeah.
Pretty young, particularly, you know, if someone was to do that today, that is really young. That's sort of just when they're hitting their peak. But for you, I mean, your book, you were writing that throughout that year, correct?
Yeah. Well, I was writing a diary for the Herald Sun. They asked me to do it. So I wasn't actually writing a book. We just ended up with so much information that we thought, let's put this into a book.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. And that upset quite a few people at the Collingwood Footy Club, particularly players, because they didn't know the contents of it. So they're thinking, what's in it? Is it triple wave information? What is it? And it was nothing like that. It was never going to be like that. I'd never do that. It was all about what happened behind the scenes at a footy club. In terms of the technical things, not the grubby stuff. There was none of the grubby stuff. No. And it was all just about the technical stuff that, you know, what was said at team meetings, how it has. And the book was not released until after they'd won the grand final. We absolutely made sure of that. So it had no effect on what they were doing. But rumour got out during the year that, you know, this, and this. And so players were making their own interpretation of what it might be, and they were all wrong in the end. And that sort of left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth in that particular year. I didn't know it was my last year going into it, but my knees were knackered and I needed a replacement really quickly. So it sort of ended on that note, which was unfortunate. But I really worked hard to keep the contact with the Collingwood Football Club after that.
Yeah.
started on they had a community radio station covering only Collingwood games in those days, and immediately jumped onto that, which was Collingwood related, started doing some Collingwood functions and have been close ever since to the people in charge there.
How does it sit with you now? Like, you obviously, as you said, you know, with Collingwood, but like finishing a career is a scary thing for anyone. Like, do you look back at your career and you go, oh, I feel like I could have, you know, gotten a little more,
No,
you know,
because
or I
my
felt
knee-
like you were done with your knee.
See, what people don't understand is in my first year of the under-19s that I said I played at Richmond, I'd done my knee in that very first game that I played, and they'd removed the cartilage in my right knee completely. So from day one, I had my cartilage totally removed. So it was getting worse and worse as each year went by from there to the point where I needed a replacement. So I knew I was cooked. I knew physically I couldn't do this anymore. And that was why I retired at such a young age, at 28 years of age.
Yeah, wow.
How long are you going to go, by the way? You're 27 now?
I'm 27, yep.
So
it's an interesting one,
I
right?
reckon you can go well into your 30s.
Yeah, like I hope so. I think I've had a few injuries. Nothing of like, no soft tissues, touch wood. Like, it's always been sort of impact injuries. Like, there was once I tripped over my own feet after I marked and broke my wrist.
So you've never had an operation?
I've had a wrist operation, no lower limb, thank God. But yeah, it's a funny one, right? Female athletes, if you want to carry a child, you've got to consider that. You've got to consider how I'm quite a maternal person, so always thought I want to be a pretty young mum.
So what are you going to do? What is your cut? This is a problem for all women that play sport.
Yeah.
So in your mind, what are you thinking is the ceiling before, you know, like is it 35? Is it 40? It's funny, right? If you asked me this 4 or 5 years ago when I was early 20s and you think you've got forever to play, I would have said, I'll play till I'm 30 and that, because 30 seems old then, and I'll play till I'm 30 and I'll, then I'll have kids and I think my priorities will change. Like, that's what I always would have said. And now at 27, I go, particularly now, like just been announced captain as well, I go, as if I'm only playing 3 more seasons. You know what I mean? I'm like, I can't only play 3 more seasons. I'm really close to Daisy Pearce. My son manages her and she's done it.
She's done it 100%. And I probably never thought I would be someone to do that. But you think about it and you go, nah, that might be an option, you know, obviously depending as well.
At least for kid one.
Yeah, well, exactly right. Yeah. So it'd be handy to have twins pop a couple out before, double whammy. That'd be good. Daisy nailed it. But Daisy came back and played some of her best football. Who knows if I'd be able to do that. But it's funny, like you do have to think about it. And 3 more years, only 3 years scares the shit out of me. I go, no way. Like I'm only just hitting my straps and really, I think, like doing what I know that I can do. I'd love to play into mid-30s. You know, I think that would be incredible. And I think we're seeing a lot of women able to do that. Now, the competition's changing. Like I said, the pace of the competition's changing. We've got young girls now coming in and who are going to be pushing the envelope. So whether I can keep up with them at mid-30s is going to be a different conversation. But, it's probably something that as you get older you do think about. Like I've got my partner, Jimmy, who's made the move over from, he's from Exmouth. He moved over from WA after the 1 year of long distance and we're living together here. And it's obviously something that you need to consider. I'm not in any rush, don't worry, 27. I still think I've got a few years there. But it's sort of one of those things that plays on your mind as a female athlete of how do I work this? And also, how do you do it without feeling like you're letting down your team by giving up a year? You know what I mean?
You'll work it out. It'll just happen and it'll come naturally and it'll fit beautifully. Mm-hmm. Just quickly, what do you think about footy clubs? Like, I always think they're a game. I think clubs, look, we all love the people we're playing with at the time.
Yeah.
But our friends and family outside are much more important, let's face it. I always feel that footy clubs, and Collingwood is no different, you're forced to like the girl or guy sitting next to you and the locker next door to you.
Yeah.
Because if you don't all get on, you don't win.
Yeah.
Is it a game of forced relationships?
I think there's a really careful balance, right? I think it's unrealistic to think you're going to get 30 people. Well, for us it's 30. For the men's it's 40, even more. 30 people in a room who are all going to be best mates. You've got so many different personalities and I think probably I realise that now as captain more than anything is it's different strokes for different folks. Like I'm not going to manage one girl the same way that I manage another, but it's finding what works for them. And like, I think for me through my career, something I learned, I've watched girls who came in day one and blew it out of the park and just had it sorted. That wasn't me. Yeah. I had to get called into their office with a slap on the wrist. Yeah, I had to be told, settle down. Like I had to learn how to train hard and all of these things. It took me years to figure out.
That all happened to me.
Exactly right. And I go, so it's different. People take time. People don't respond to the same thing, but it's finding out what they do. And it's unrealistic to expect everyone to be best mates. But you've got to work towards it
now than they were 100%, 10 years ago.
Because I think, like you said, right, it was, you writing a book.
Yeah.
Well, what wasn't meant to be a book but turned into it. People would have looked at you and gone, oh, bit of me. Yeah. People embrace the individuality now. I think it's more accepted.
And everyone's not the same and everyone can't be trained the same and everyone mentally is different.
Exactly, yeah.
So they've really done well there.
They have. And I think it's something Collingwood have really embraced as well. I think it's something, they sort of almost set the tone in a little bit sort of in this day and age.
So going forward, are we going to see Ruby as the host of Fox Footy, like taking over from, all the guns there? Do you want to call or do you want to be specials or do you want to be a host? What do you want to do?
I don't know if I could ever be a play-by-play. That scares the shit out of me. Yeah. I like, as in, I look at it and it's probably one of those things I look at and I go, I don't know if I could ever do that. Like, it's incredible to me. I go, I don't think, like, talk about live.
It's just footy vocab,
Yeah.
So the better vocab, the same thing happens in a game of footy all the time. Someone kicks it, someone handballs and someone marks it. So if you've got 50 different ways of describing the kick, he stabs it, he slices it, he wobbles it, he mongrels it. These are the things that this is what I say when you have footy vocab. So if you've got that, it becomes easy because the recall is there.
Yeah, it's probably just something that scares me. And so it's probably something I should give a crack at some stage. Let me get a handle on boundary and specials first.
The amount of words that you've got into this podcast, I reckon
we've well and truly hit our word count.
You would be a walk-up start to be a commentator, I reckon.
I want to crack into specials. Right. Like I said, I do it for the women's, and it's something that Fox see for me in the men's, which is really exciting. Like, I think Channel 7 paved the way with getting female AFLW players into that job with Daisy and Abby and now Erin as well. So they're great in the way of they don't want to pigeonhole me to boundary. They want me to get to a point where I can confidently do specials. See what happens from there. I think hosting's another thing that daunts me, but probably not as much as the play-by-play.
But I see hosting you. I look at you now and I see host written all over you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. We'll see. What about you? What's next? What's next for BT?
What's next for me? Well,
how long have you got?
I'm 62. So how long have you got? Well, I'm contracted for another, I think, 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So I've got that to go, and then I'm not sure whether I'll slowly after that sort of, trim back. Because at the moment I'm doing 4 games a weekend. It's a lot of footy, and it's a lot of time. So because we live in Lawn, I live half the week up in Melbourne, and my wife lives in Lawn for the 7 days.
Yeah,
it's 4 days apart, because we're footy on a Thursday night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So for me, I'll keep going as I am. I think, maintaining the excellence. And still striving. I don't ever look at myself and go, I'm as good as this guy or that guy before me. I go, I need to get better.
Yeah.
And I still go to the footy every weekend thinking I haven't called my best game of footy ever. If you said to me, what's the best game? I would not have a clue.
Yeah.
But I do know deep down that I've never nailed a game where I've walked away and gone, that's 100% perfect. So that's the challenge.
Can I ask you? Do you know you've nailed a moment though? What's your favourite call?
Yes.
Just before we wrap up, what's your favourite call that you've ever made?
You probably do know that you've nailed a moment. I think that's fair to say you do. I think marks are the biggest thing because you could have a special comments person like yourself talking and the ball's in midair and I'm thinking to myself, I wish he or she would shut up because this could be mark of the year.
Yeah.
And so there's that sort of thing. I think there was one with Flan Raan. He took one and I nailed that because it wasn't just the mark. I think can't remember what I said, something like, oh, this guy's going to kick it and I can see Flying Ryan getting in a position to mark this. And then when the ball's in flight, I said something else, Flying Ryan's, going to come forward. So I'd sort of almost
preempted it.
The
oracle.
and it happened.
Yeah.
So it felt like I was right on top of that. But there have been many moments that I've missed, which I won't describe, but it's a bit scary.
No, well, I love your work. I
love
think,
yours too, Ruth.
No.
I think you're going great. I think you're a great player. Congratulations on the captaincy and all of that.
Thank you.
That's going to be enormous, and you've got a huge future. There's no doubt about it.
I know we're enemies, Fox and Seven, but I do hope you're obviously Triple M family. Hopefully we get to work together in the future a little bit more.
Yeah.
But this has been awesome. I've loved it.
Good luck.